Here we go, hot topics in smart contracts. So I have 15 slides, so people know that I usually give a little bit of information overload and move pretty quickly through topics because there's a lot to cover, particularly in the world of smart contracts. So just get used to it, but the slides will be made available to you later on if you want to come back and review anything. So we're going to cover the history of smart contracts, DeFi markets, NFT markets, all the problems associated with all of them, 5 years of hard problems of crypto economics, ERC 721 and 1155, the new EIP 2981, the new smart contract languages, the Teal from Algorand, Clarity from Stacks, the Cardano almost delivered language, and then Solana. We'll talk a little bit about Ethereum and Layer 2, and then briefly about on and off-chain governance. And then at the end, if we have any time, which we probably won't, we'll just talk about how great I am, but that's unlikely to happen. So, to the smart contracts and the kind of history behind them, it's been an idea for a couple decades. Nick Szabo wrote about it in the early 90s. It was something that took a lot of infrastructure, namely blockchains, to get to be where it was. And it was picked up by Vitalik in 2013 as a concept. There's originally a project called Mastercoin that kind of implemented a partial form of this. And basically it involved putting a scripting language or kind of more Turing-complete language into a virtual machine that was deployed by blockchain. That is now the Ethereum virtual machine, which is by far the most used smart contract. And then the very first language that was used to do it was called Serpent. This is an extract from the Ethereum original white paper. Kind of illustrates the kind of basic functions of Serpent as it was designed. There's obviously an assembly kind of version of that as well that had opcodes and things like that. And that was an active area of development in 2014, which led through a very few different versions of smart contract languages, and ultimately settled on Solidity. The value that is locked, whether through stable coins or whatever else, into smart contracts, that's around $112 billion as of this morning. And my general thesis here is this is going to eat banks. It's going to be growing immensely. It is the future. All value things are being created, and we're only in the very early stages of some of the aspects of it. Like if you're talking about tokenized real assets, which we'll barely touch on, but so once you start tokenizing real estate, building it in, and smart contract layers, this is going to eat a whole bunch of different things. So if you know anything about kind of what's going on blockchain NFT marketplaces right now, many of them implement royalties in the sense that you sell something once, then hopefully you get a 10% or more every time it's resold to a new party, but that's typically implemented in a unique way by the marketplaces themselves. And this is a thing from internal to Ethereum community as a suggestion. It hasn't been approved yet on how to implement that through a new ERC standard. So now looking at some other interesting things. So I know some people have developed some pretty interesting asset protocols on Algorand already, which is an up-and-coming blockchain. It's a stack-based language, so this is literally what it looks like. You can see the transaction address, and basically going one element at the stack. Actually, you literally have to push the things. If you've worked back in assembly once upon a time, you probably recognize this sort of thing. It's obviously not the most pleasant and easy to write in. Then we have Cardano. I don't really know that anyone knows what's going on with Cardano. Every time I look, I try and figure it out, and I'm pretty smart, I think, and I can't actually figure it out because it's like 2 years old information. So my guess is that we still have to wait to see what Cardano is actually going to be able to achieve. Flow, as I mentioned before, is obviously getting a ton of traction right now. They built their own native, very kind of friendly-looking smart contract language. I mean, they basically cleaned up Solidity, in my view, and made it very readable, and then given nice little interfaces. So if you're up for a little challenge and you want to look at something interesting, I recommend going into their language. The other thing that makes this, I don't say irrelevant, because I personally would really like to see Ethereum 2 be successful, but the work around sort of sidechain, ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, various other kind of layer 2 solutions has progressed quite a lot in the last couple of years. This is the Matic version, which recently renamed Polygon, but basically it involves running a sidechain and then, similar to what we saw before, checkpointing the Merkle root into the chain periodically. So that's something that in some ways is for whatever reason, it's kind of an obvious thing to do, but no one really implemented it that well. And there's a lot of traction around it right now within the Ethereum community, partially just because of the immense fees. And so when people look at Ethereum, I mean, and doing art stuff or whatever else, obviously the fees are a huge deterrent. On Offshore Governance, this is a project that I started as well many years ago. It took a while to really get a huge kind of community buy-in behind it, but as you can see this from GitHub, basically there is a token-based voting system, and then people can elect council members, and they can also change various things, which is all kind of running in an organic thing through Telegram groups and various other stuff. Which is basically a self-service tokenization platform where you can tokenize any asset and then build in kind of AML KYC whitelists and things like that.